Buying pay-per-views on nordvpn.com/Fightful is going to enhance your pay-per-view buying process. Now, one subscription to NordVPN has so many different benefits, but if you're a big pay-per-view buyer like myself, UFC, boxing, pro wrestling, all that good stuff, any combination of the three, if they're doing a fight circus or something like that, this subscription will pay for itself after 1 or 2 pay-per-view buys. Change your virtual location, pay for it at the prices that other people are paying for it in the UK, in Australia, etc., etc. And you can get different interfaces. Maybe you don't like Peacock and you want to check out the WWE Network the way that it used to be, the way that it was designed to be, the easy navigation, so on and so forth. Maybe you want to watch AEW without commercials. Maybe there's some other overseas services that you can't subscribe to and you want access to them. NordVPN.com/Fightful gives you that with a great deal and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Even better, 24/7 tech support, so if you have trouble navigating any of it, they can help you out. Fastest VPN on the planet, NordVPN.com/Fightful. What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful, here with a name you know. Where don't you know him from? Years as one of the top wrestlers in the world. This Sunday, you can see him at AEW Dynasty live in St. Louis. You can check it out on Triller TV. Pay-per-view platforms everywhere. They really opened it up. We've got Kyle O'Reilly. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thank you for the gracious introduction there. Appreciate it.
I think this is our first interview. I think I've interviewed, I almost had an interview with you once, and I think NXT had to reschedule it or something, but here we are. It's AEW Dynasty. It's been quite the road for you to get back here, Kyle.
Yeah. First pay-per-view match in quite a while, so really looking forward to it.
How are you feeling physically? I mean, when you were out, I would hear like little updates here and there about how you were doing. I've dealt with some neck issues myself, and it's one of those things where sometimes you'll wake up, you'll feel like, okay, I feel good. Then another day you might wake up and you don't necessarily feel the two fingers on the end of your right hand, whatever that may be. What was this process like for you, even coming to grips with the fact that you had this severe injury?
Yeah, just to really be patient, you know. All I could really do was everything that was in my power, and that was just rehabbing, staying positive, and knowing eventually it will get better. Like, that's a huge mental hurdle to get over, right? And that's half the battle in getting well sometimes. So just to know that if I stayed the course, eventually things would get better. I didn't expect it to take as long as it did, but I wasn't expecting the complications to begin with either. And at the end of the day, it ended up kind of really being a blessing for me, because I got some really special time at home with my daughter, who was just 6 months old when I got hurt. And then, now I'm going back and she's over 2. So I've got to spend all that quality time at home with her and, playing that stay-at-home dad role. And, I found I'm a better dad than I ever was a wrestler. So, there's always that as a full-time backup plan too. So, just to stay the course, be positive, knowing I would get better, and eventually I would get, back in the ring and back on pay-per-view, and here I am.
And you're facing a guy that you're incredibly familiar with, obviously, Roderick Strong. How was that for you, coming right back into a program with him? Somebody who, from an in-ring perspective, you're comfortable with, you've got chemistry with, you've got history with. Coming back from something like that and being put in the ring with him, did that almost put you at ease that is like a first program for you?
Exactly. You're 100% right, man. A guy that I trust fully, in and out of the ring, one of my best friends. Yeah, that's an ideal situation to be put in, coming back from this amount of time off to be in there with a guy like Roddy. And even if we weren't as close as we are, it would still be ideal, because he's a professional. He's one of the best to ever do it in this generation and other generations too. He's just, he's a guy that I've looked up to for a long time, trying to make it in wrestling. He was a guy that I watched and idolized and was like, man, I wish I could be as good as him one day. And then, lo and behold, we'd become close pals and tag team partners, right? So it's crazy how life works out sometimes. But yeah, best situation to possibly be in coming into Sunday for sure.
What do we have on your hat today? Snoopy made headlines. Oh,
He's playing tennis.
oh my gosh. Hell yes. What did you make of the buzz around you just simply wearing a hat recently?
I don't get it, man. I hope it's positive buzz. I mean, what's not to love? It's Snoopy. He's the world's most famous beagle, right? Just
I
showing
was
my support.
sincerely, of all the scoops I've broken, I was sincerely brokenhearted that one wasn't one that I got. It was, hey, but you know what? Sometimes you got to take an L. You got to
Yeah.
admit when somebody's better at the gig than you.
Anything
And I
for
got
a
out.
headline.
I know. Listen, what would you want the headline of this interview to be? I love asking people that.
A nice chit chat about a wrestling pay-per-view.
I do a segment called Shooting Softly where I ask people to say nice things about everybody, because you know the ones that always catch fire are like Simon Gotch buries Enzo Amore. Like you always see that one on YouTube. I'm going to ask you to say some nice things about some completely random people in the wrestling business. Hopefully you can conjure up a little bit of something.
I'll try my best.
We'll start with the Young Bucks. How about them?
Oh, those guys are the best. I mean, how could you not say anything nice about those guys? Good Christian boys who've changed the business for the better, you know, and my hat's off to them.
We'll go with one, Michael Nakazawa.
Michael Nakazawa, always been very kind to me and respectful and friendly. I met him, I think, for the first time at like Evolve 1, actually. I think he was Ibushi's, you know, translator and travel companion, whatever. And yeah, you know, he's been just cool, quiet dude. Don't really have many interactions with him, but yeah, that's nice. I'm being nice.
I mean, sometimes I like to throw some that aren't necessarily somebody that's been on screen with you a lot, because we hear you talk about those people. So let's just throw one. Deonna Purrazzo, she got signed recently.
Yeah, she's an incredible performer in the ring. One of the best technical wrestlers, you know, I've seen. So yeah, she's awesome.
I'm also interested in going back a little bit. One of my favorite matches of all time, yourself and Kushida. My God, like I am an absolute dork for the double wrist lock. Like I think it's one of the most versatile holds ever. And like I remember getting a hold of that and watching that, and I was like, man, I loved the transitions in, out of it, how you all told the story around that. And it immediately became one of my favorite matches. How does it feel in the moment in a match like that? Like, are you acutely aware, like, oh, this is a history-making match, this is something that people are going to remember forever?
Well, it's extremely kind of you to say. First and foremost, yeah, it's an amazing compliment. So thank you, man. In the time, are you talking about the finals of the Super Junior?
Oh,
tournament?
yeah, the finals for sure.
In the time, I was like mortified coming back. I thought like it was awful. I was like, oh my, because Kushida got knocked out. Like a bunch of stuff went a little hairy. I was like, we shit the bed completely. Oh, I was like, just you put so much pressure on yourself. This whole tour had been building up towards this finals match. And like, I don't know, I put a lot of stress on myself and had such high expectations. And this is before I learned, I mean, this is 2015. So this is before I learned that there's always going to be curveballs thrown at you every single time. Every big match I've ever had, something unexpected has happened. And that's just the nature of, you know, wrestling and performing live. Like you never know what to expect and what's going to come your way. So that match in the moment was like, oh my God. But oh yeah, now looking back, I'm extremely proud of it. And Kushida is one of my all-time favorite opponents. I mean, sometimes you come across guys that you just have such amazing chemistry with, and it's just right off the bat from the moment we touched, before we even wrestled, I could tell like me and this guy are going to work really well together. And obviously the New Japan office saw that as well, and gave us the opportunity to face each other in the finals. And I'm extremely proud of that moment, because that's a huge moment in my career to have main evented the best of the Super Juniors is really cool.
Your name gets thrown around a lot for like blood sport, for things like that. Is that something that you'd be interested in doing now that you're back?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Always. I think Bloodsport's awesome, man. And I love that style, love shoot style wrestling. So I've never actually done like a full on event like that, but I think it'd be fun.
I mean, especially with the skill set in which you possess. I mean, anybody that has seen somebody like throw a kick, they know that's something that you've worked at an incredible amount. Was it ever something in your head where you're like, yeah, maybe I'll do an MMA fight, maybe I'll do something like this, or was it strictly just I want to learn this in order to apply it to pro wrestling
Yeah.
and maximize my set there?
Yeah, definitely. That's the only reason I really started to train in the first place. Like wrestling was always my first love, and fighting hadn't really broke yet. It wasn't that popular when I was,
Sure.
Just starting to train. Right. So yeah, that was more of just a supplement for my wrestling skills, and I liked that style of wrestling. And like I would do those things, I'd do an armbar and kicks and stuff like my first few years of wrestling, and was not good looking back on it now because I didn't really actually apply the actual technique to it, right? And actually get in the gym and get beaten up and put that ego aside, because that's what's hard to do for wrestlers a lot. Like when you're used to just working, and to go into a gym and just to be at the mercy of dudes for like and get your ass kicked, it sucks for a while. But then things get fun once you get good at them, and I got decent technique now, and it translated to wrestling really well for me. So that's kind of the lane that I've sort of picked and sort of tried to stay in.
There's so many fighters that I talk to that transition to pro wrestling, and they're like, well, I wish I would have known this satisfied my competitive urges a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they probably could have made a better living in pro wrestling doing that.
Right.
I'm interested. What's the hardest you've ever been hit in the ring?
Oh man. It's like how do you quantify that question? I mean, it's been like 19 years. I've been rocked a fair amount of times.
What's one that comes to your mind and you went, shit?
Yeah. One comes to mind just because it's the only time me and this individual have ever touched, and it's, to revisit it is a huge dream match of mine. So I think it was 2006 maybe. And it was a tag match. Me and Brilliant Billy Swade versus Brian Danielson and Sid Silent. It's the only time I ever faced Brian Danielson in a tag match in Vancouver, long time ago. And he did like that spinning back tiger mask kick to me, like in the jaw. And it was like, oh dude, it rocked my world. It was, it was brutal. But it was like, yeah, like Brian just stiffed the shit out of me. This is sweet.
I mean, I mean, when did you start? Like 05, 04?
Yeah. 05. Yeah.
So, I mean, that was, my God, even then, like, could you tell, like, in the ring, you're like, yeah, this is going to be a guy that I'm probably going to be seeing for decades to come.
Oh, I mean, when I was going to indie shows in like 03, 04, maybe even before that, 02-ish, Brian, like, because he was from Aberdeen, Washington, so British Columbia is just a quick drive for him. So like a lot of his first indie shows after he'd come back from Texas were in BC, and the local promoter was using him a lot. Like when he first came out in the mask and stuff, and then he was just the American Dragon. We're like, who is this guy? He's incredible. And then like in 05, when I started training, was when he was the Ring of Honor champion and had that epic run on top there. And like, yeah, you knew this guy was like, this is the guy for sure. Yeah.
I always remember seeing your name. I always remember seeing your name back then connected with Phantasmo as well. And I'm like,
yeah,
like you two that early in your career to have been in like the same place as often. I'm like, man, that seems like it'd be a useful resource for both of you.
Yeah. I mean, we broke in together and learned how to wrestle together in the same class and did our first matches together. I mean, like, yeah, we go way back, and he's another guy, just an incredible talent. And I'm glad he's finally getting, the recognition he deserves as one of the elite talents in the world,
On the subject of the elite, one of my dream matches is Undisputed versus Elite. And I keep getting teased into thinking it's going to happen one day. And unfortunately, the timing has just always been like a little bit off. You showed up and Kenny was sidelined. When Kenny came back, you were sidelined. You're back. Kenny and Adam Cole are sidelined. And I know that you guys aren't necessarily on the same page on screen right now. Is that something that any or all of you have sort of like eyeballed or earmarked or anything? Because when the Wednesday Night Wars, as they called it, happened, like you all were the anchors of those things.
Yeah. certainly is a dream match for a lot of people. You know, including us. It'd be amazing to do one day. I know the headline now is going to be Kyle O'Reilly teases match with, but yeah, I mean, that's
The headline's having a nice chit chat. We
yeah,
established this.
that's right. You know, these things are out of our control. Injuries, what have you, creative decisions, booking. I mean, so many factors come into play when these things get decided. Who's to say? You know, it may happen, it may never happen. I mean, that's out of my control. All I can really do is be prepared for if and when it does happen to, you know, knock it out of the park, as they say.
We saw you get a little bit more promo time since you came back. And especially on our post show, everybody's like, man, Kyle O'Reilly's really good about the sad eyes. You have very sympathetic eyes, Kyle O'Reilly. Is this a concentrated effort? Are you turning it up? Or is that just sincerely how you are? Because it's almost a gift.
Well, actually, what I will do is every night, and this is gonna sound like I'm making it up, but I'll set an alarm for every 20 minutes. And when the alarm goes off, I force myself out of bed and do just 25 squat thrusts. And then I go back to sleep. And then, you know, the alarm keeps ringing and I keep getting up doing 25 squat thrusts. And over a night, I might get, you know, maybe 2.5, 3 hours of solid sleep, but I'm getting hundreds of squat thrusts. So, you know, you have a little bit of sad eyes and some bagginess under your eyes, but I can crack a walnut between my thighs at a moment's notice. So it's really kind of worth it.
Is this a legit thing?
Yes.
God damn it. I don't even know how to follow that up. I don't even know how to follow up with that.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, no, it's beyond my control, dude. I mean, I live with a chronic illness. I get, you know, this is me every day. I have a toddler at home. I get some baggy eyes. I get it, you know.
Chronic illness. Oh, now, come on. You can't question Sheamus like that. Man. I'm just saying, people are like, damn, he really turns it up. He's very good at this. You're very good at going from one of the most dastardly heels in wrestling to making everybody go, man, he's really bummed out about this. Like, you're able to flip that switch pretty well. Who knew? All you guys need to do is not sleep and do some squat thrusts, and there you go. He just gave you the secret. Now, I mean, we talked about the injury and all that stuff. Do you have any particular goals like that you want to accomplish in AEW that you've eyed that maybe during that time off, you're like, that's specifically something I want to do or something I want to make sure happens?
Yeah, I really just don't want to take for granted the opportunity to wrestle, you know, in a mainstream company and even have matches again. That's something I was never really sure if it was going to happen, you know. So the fact that I get to be back on the road and earning my living, right, and to get to wrestle, the only thing that I've ever really been good at, or could at least, you know, make a living doing. So yeah, that's the most important thing, man. You know, big matches and championships, I'm sure they'll come as long as I stay the course. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. You know, just one match at a time. I feel like every time, like I got a big match coming up, I just the pressure builds, and no matter what it is, whether if it's the match, you know, on Collision with Brian Keith, or if it's on pay-per-view with Roderick Strong, I'm going to treat it the same and give the best performance I possibly can every single time. And by doing so, hopefully, you know, championships and big matches will continue to present themselves, right?
You've been wrestling on TV for quite a while now. Like, what are some of the things that you have seen change with like that television wrestling landscape? Maybe even in the way that you need to do things that maybe you like or dislike.
Yeah. Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was kind of zoning out.
So I mean, no, it's okay. You've wrestled on TV for quite a while across AEW, AEW, ROH, NXT, WWE. What are some of the things that you've noticed since you first started to wrestle on TV that maybe have adjusted, changed, fallen by the wayside? Like, I know in some places they used to have to work directly to the hard camera. They don't have to anymore.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's interesting just how different philosophies change and different styles come along, and, you know, what catches and, you know, moves that people will do sometimes become in vogue, and then it's, you know, the new hot thing that everyone wants to do. And yeah, it's really tough to kind of put a finger on what that is and to really notice those particular things. Yeah, it's, I don't know. That's a good question. What do you
It's
do you
just
notice anything? Like, what would you say?
I mean, one of the things that I've liked most recently is you don't see as many people like working to the hard camera. Like you don't see as many people like specifically like awkwardly walk around for a pin when
Oh, right.
the whole point is get their shoulders on the mat, get the hell out of there. Like within
Yeah.
the context of the show. I love that the cameras find the talent, and a lot of the producers are trusted to find the talent and vice versa
Yeah.
in that sense instead of the other way around. Like I've really liked that. And I mean, we're almost back in the era of where playing to specifically the audience that is there. It's
Yeah.
in fashion again because they're there and they're supposed to be played to.
Yeah. I like that a lot too. I don't know if that's necessarily by design and if that's
Sure.
directors telling people or if it's just happening at a subconscious level amongst the talent where, it just one person does it. It's like the monkeys on the island, one washes a coconut and they all start doing it, So like
Yeah.
it could kind of be, something similar.
Well, Kyle O'Reilly got a big match this Sunday, international title against Roderick Strong, AEW Dynasty in St. Louis. Guys, we're going to have a post show. We're going to have all kinds of coverage coming from it. Kyle, it was wonderful to talk to you, and we're so happy to see you back.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for supporting me and for supporting AEW. And it's going to be an amazing pay-per-view. The lineup is so stacked. It's going to be ridiculous.
Oh, it's insane.
So I'm honored to be on such a, important card with so many talented wrestlers. So
until next time, guys, we're out.
Thanks, man.